welcome to the Parent Pivot Podcast. I'm Steve Cummings.
And I'm Julia Cummings.
And we kind of took a little bit of time off for the summer, but we are back. We've had some interviews, and now we're going on video. We're going on YouTube. So That's kind of cool. So as we normally do, I start off and I say, sweetheart, what are we talking about today?
I don't really have a title for this, but my thinking is, I was thinking about how in my practice, I get a lot of people that are frustrated with their spouses or their in-laws or their own parents for that matter. And the overall sense of feeling that they're in control.
Right.
So
that the parents are in control.
Yes.
Okay.
So if we're married, which we are.
Yeah. That's a fact.
Yes. But let's say I had really controlling parents on some level who were demanding, that we participate in the traditions that always have existed.
That's an easy thing to talk about. There's usually other stuff. You know when your parents are controlling you. You know what that feels like.
Yes.
They always expect you to please them.
Or maybe you, at your wedding, your mother took over. Or perhaps it's on a weekly basis. Or perhaps it's just them talking about how you're raising your children and things like that. Or perhaps, did I already say a wedding?
No, but obviously it's like they're constantly getting on your nerves because you're not doing life the way they want you to do it.
Right. But this is where part of the issue comes in.
Okay.
So let's say I've got a controlling mom, and that's kind of the go-to. And we've been married 25 years, let's say. We've really been married 36, but let's say...
Let's move back a decade.
Yeah, let's move back a decade. Let's say it's been 25 years, and we have allowed this to go on and on and on.
Right.
And
under our breath, and we grumble about it behind the scenes.
But maybe I'm not grumbling.
Oh, okay.
Maybe I am completely on board with my controlling mom, and I don't see it for what it is.
So you're in this kind of loop with her, and I would be the one saying, yes. Oh my gosh, how long is this going to go on?
Right. And you're not speaking up
I'm
enough,
not speaking up.
Or you are grumbling under your breath, or we're fighting about it, or, then we start seeing it in our children.
So it hasn't been identified, it's just there.
And people are complaining about it, people are upset about it, whatever.
Okay.
It's there.
Okay.
The point I want to make is, if this is my parent,
okay,
and I am not speaking up and doing anything about it, then that will continue and continue and continue. If I somehow think that's normal,
right,
and just go with it,
you're kind of oblivious to it. You're not aware.
Right. And I just think this is normal, and I want to honor my parents, and I want to, please them, and this is what we always do. This is important to me.
Okay.
All of those things. I'm eventually probably, when my children become adults,
we'll do the same thing.
We'll do the same thing.
There's that saying, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree.
Right. So then my kids become adults, and I am demanding the same thing of them. So not only has this caused a rift in my marriage because perhaps my spouse wasn't able to speak up or felt like there was no point,
wasn't no win situations, we're kind of stuck, we're just going to deal with it, we're going to have these fights every once in a while and just live with it.
Exactly. But it would stand to reason that when my children became adults, that I then am doing the same thing, and I am then damaging that relationship, those relationships as well.
Right.
So are you grasping that? The other piece of this too is, if I'm okay with this and I'm thinking it's normal,
right,
I've probably hurt you through the years in many, many ways. I probably have not put you first.
I was going to say, as you say that, I'm hearing myself, I'm less important.
Right.
Your mom is always more important than I am.
Right.
She stirs the pot, and whatever she says you're going to do, and I'm left to feel like,
whatever,
like I'm not there, like I'm invisible.
And imagine too, if she's truly a controlling person, and granted, this can come on either spouse.
It could be dad doing it.
It can be dad, mom, whatever. But chances are good that she actually has hurt you too.
Right.
And I have not stood up for you.
Right, because mom's more important than I am.
Right. So this is a dynamic that I hear a
Oh,
lot
really?
and often.
Really?
Yeah, it's
Wow.
it kind of
So,
it kind of blows my mind sometimes because it seems so obvious to me being on the outside listening to stories.
right, because you're the third party. It's like, wait, this is sticking out
Yeah.
quite easily.
Yeah. But if there is a situation, and this can go way back to the beginning of your relationship, probably, but if this is the situation in your life, the chances are really good that you haven't stuck up for your spouse through the years.
Right.
And that's a problem. And then you're going to do again. You're going to carry that on most likely to the next generation where your kids are then fighting in their marriages and the same type of thing is going on and just pervades in your family.
So, there's this, what's coming to mind for me. There's that movie, Failure to Launch. And
Yes.
we've talked about that in previous podcasts, whatever.
Yeah.
What this feels like to me is a failure to leave and cleave.
Oh, absolutely.
Because it's like, especially if parents, especially if you live in the same city or close enough by,
Yeah.
and things. But I suppose it can happen across country too, because it's like all of a sudden that parent bond has not been severed to a partner. So in other words, mom and dad, the mom you're speaking about, didn't pivot. She
Right.
stayed in parenting,
Right.
and the adult child allowed that to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're listening out there watching us on YouTube, this is just kind of like, hey, how can I stand in front of the mirror and go, I want healthier relationships with my adult child. Is that possibly going on here? And maybe it's not.
Yeah.
And things, but it could be at some level.
Yeah. And don't expect that when your kids leave home that this relationship is going to be great if you have done this.
Yeah, because that's going to take a whole lot of work, because now it's like, I'm the stranger, the kids aren't there. You got your identity from the kids.
Right.
You were probably controlling too with them. Now they leave off to college or got married and had kids, and now we're looking at each other and going, who are you?
Right. Or I've just ignored you our whole marriage, and certainly ignoring you now because maybe as the kids have gone, maybe I'm still pouring myself into the kids. Maybe I'm talking to them constantly.
Yep.
Maybe I'm making sure that they are doing what they were supposed to do. Maybe I'm still cooking them meals. Maybe, there are just so many
Because you want to stay in control. You're getting your identity and your needs met by doing that.
Right.
Same thing that your mom did.
Right.
And now it's getting past the next generation, and we're trying to raise healthy adult children, and we want them to be responsible and leave and cleave on their own, but there is going to be that grieving period.
Yeah.
I think that's the part that we're like, oh my gosh, that's so scary. I don't know what that looks like, and so we stay over here controlling things because we don't know what else to do.
Right. So you kind of have to make a decision. Is this something that I want to damage my relationships? And I want to ask this question too. For those of you who are Christians out there, I will often hear Christians put this in the context of, I'm honoring my parents.
Right.
Because the Bible says honor your parents. This is not what the Bible's talking about when it says that. Because it's not honoring, because you're not honoring your spouse, you're not honoring your children. It's not leaving and cleaving like you're talking about.
Right.
It's an unhealthy attachment.
Right. And what I hear too is we've got boundaries that are being crossed.
Right.
And we think that it's oh gosh, as Christians we can't be mean to our parents.
Right.
Which a boundary is like, hey, I'm going to, do this. We're going to come and see you twice a year, whatever. Now, are they going to moan and groan and grumble about that or whatever? Probably.
Yeah.
But you're showing your spouse you're more important.
Yeah.
My relationship, my life has changed. I've started my new family. I'm off that way. And sometimes you don't figure it out till 10, 20, 30, 40 years into it. It's like, oh my gosh, is it too late to go back and correct that? No, not at all.
No.
It's going to take some time.
Yeah.
Because guess what? We as humans, here's a top secret of the podcast for today. We don't like change. we like to keep things the way it is, and we grumble, complain, we medicate, because those negative feelings about what I'm going to feel all alone, I'm feeling abandoned, and I think that's what can suck an adult child back into that thing. It's like, oh, you're leaving me, you're abandoning me. That's just manipulation.
Yeah.
It's like, Mom, no, I'm not.
Yeah.
My husband's more important.
Yeah.
I love you to pieces. He comes first in my life, and things like that.
Yeah. And it's a hard reality to look at, honestly, because if you've gotten, in my example, if you've gotten to a 25-year point in your marriage and it's always been the same, it's going to be really hard to shift that. For me to suddenly make you more important and put you as a priority.
Right.
But the truth is, your kids are going to leave, they're going to get married. You're not going to have that forever with them. Your parent is most likely going to die at some point. This is the relationship.
It's our primary relationship
that needs the work.
Yeah.
And so, how do I shift and make you a priority? And it can be the smallest of things. Honestly, I mean, having a date night once a week can put you in a different
Here's
place.
what I would suggest. I mean, maybe you're in that spot where it's like, oh, I wonder if that's happening. So if you're the spouse who has, let's say, the controlling parent and whatever, I would go to my spouse and ask in a very open way to say, hey, how are you experiencing this with me and my mom or the dad? Does it come across that way? I want to hear from you, and don't get defensive. Okay? It's just sit there and listen. Let them put together their perspective, because everything. In fact, I just had a conversation a few days ago with our nephew. We all have perspectives on what happens, and like on this side, I can see the mic, and I've got a mute, and I got different things over here, and I'm sitting there expecting Julia to see the exact same thing that I see on this side of the mic. What do you see on that side, hon?
I don't have my glasses on. I have mute and volume and a red button and.
There you go. So you're living out of this perspective, and I have no clue that you're living that way because you've got something else on your side.
Right.
Until what? Till I have a conversation and I ask you, hey, what's on your side of the mic? And you tell me, oh, I've been operating this whole time based on this.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like go out for a date night, go out and get some cheesecake at the Cheesecake Factory. That's my favorite thing to go do. Or ice cream since we're in summertime. And sit down and have a conversation and saying, is this going on in our marriage?
Yeah.
Do we have good boundaries with our parents? I mean, we're in our early 60s. Mm-hmm. Our parents are much older. They're in their 80s and 90s.
Yes.
In fact, her mom just had her 94th, and she's 74. Anyway, have that conversation. And the one who's not having an adult parent that's controlling, right? Be open. Just share. Yeah, I've had our feelings hurt. Our Christmases are like this, or this happens, or that happens, and then just kind of sit back and go, okay. So right then you can start to take some things, and then I wouldn't do anything right away. I would pray into that together.
Yeah.
And some of it is if I've shown you to be invisible, I want to make sure that I didn't mean to do that, and now I see it from your side and go, well, you got a red button over there. I wish I had a red button, but now I see it from your angle and going, that makes sense. I can see why you felt invisible, less than, whatever. And I want to make sure she knows that, that I'm validating her. I'm valuing her like that. I want to make those changes. Now, guess what? They're not going to be made overnight.
No, I wish.
It's going to take some time. And then when I say pray into it, it's like, okay, so how do we go about making some boundaries or changing stuff? And you guys will have to decide. We are here to be reached. You can send us an email at parentpivotpodcast@gmail.com and say, hey, Steve and Julia, we watched you on YouTube and we watched you listen to you on the podcast and you talked about this. Here's our situation. And we'll get back to you pretty quickly. So parentpivotpodcast@gmail.com. That's one way. We're willing to help you out there. And just have that conversation and then start, what would you say would be the next step?
Well, I got to speak to the person who's been hurt, too.
Person's been hurt, okay.
Because the person who's been hurt, after so many years of being hurt,
it's about time.
There's going to be some resentment.
Yeah.
There may be a root of bitterness.
Yeah.
There may be some contempt. Those are all things that the person who's been hurt has to deal with and work on. So again, like you said, this is not an overnight fix. This is not something that you can expect that all of those negative feelings and emotions would go away immediately, or even maybe within months, or even in some cases
But you're starting to change your trajectory on that and realizing, hey, we need to stop doing it this way and make it healthier.
Right.
Leave even cleave situation for us, separate grandma and grandpa over here. Our adult kids are watching.
Right. Right.
And stuff.
And don't demand that of your adult children. Be aware of how you are like your parents.
Right. And the thing,
that's a hard thing to look at.
It is, because like even when I think about it, it's like, that there are good things and bad things about what you like about your parents.
Yeah.
Like we're watching the Olympics are on, and so people are saying, "Gosh, here's a second generation Olympian," and mom and dad are in the stands, and I mean it's awesome. But what we don't know is like, well, he or she could be completely, beating him over the head to work out, and they didn't want to do it. So who knows? But all that to say is, you got to look at this going, this is the family origin I grew up in. Mm-hmm. Mom and dad did the best they could with what they knew.
Yeah.
And they're broken. I'm broken. I just need to evaluate it so I can understand my life, because I'm making my worldview based on what's happening around me.
Yeah.
And the more I can be aware, I think awareness is the key foundational core value it's one that I have. It's my top 5, but I mean, just being aware, asking questions. Like that's what I'm saying. Go have a date night, ask questions, and find out, because you've been dealing with it for a long time.
Yeah.
What about
Absolutely.
the adult kids? Would you go to your own kids to say, hey, would you own it in front of your adult kids and say, hey, this has been going on. I know you've seen it, but we've realized that that's not healthy for us, and we don't want to pass that on to you guys?
Yeah, I would think I would start by asking my children what they see. I wouldn't put the ideas in their head.
Gotcha. Okay.
I would say, how do you guys experience grandma or grandpa, whomever it is, in our relationship with them, and how do you see that, and kind of get their perspective. And depending on where the conversation goes, it might lead you right into, I've been realizing that I really cater to them all the time, and when I cater to them, I realize I'm dismissing dad, right? Or whatever your situation is.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. So my question is, if they're oblivious to it.
Who, the kids?
Yes. So let's say the kids are oblivious, like, maybe they see that as normal, mm-hmm. So they're not even aware that is something that needs to be addressed and changed.
Yeah. Do
you just still let it lie?
No, I would make the changes. It depends on how old the kids are, honestly. Okay. And it depends.
They've got to be like in their 20s and 30s.
Right, and I'm picturing a different conversation with adult children that are married versus, your college-age kids.
They're busy with their own lives and doing stuff, and they may say, Christmas is like this, or vacations, or whatever.
Right.
They may pick out a few things, and you can kind of figure out if they've found something they've witnessed.
Right, and I would, if it's something that you realize before your kids get married, I would probably for sure address it in that engagement period. I would say, as you are looking at your family and getting married and speaking into them as like a mentor,
right.
That you are speaking to your kids and going, these are the things that I realized I did poorly.
Right.
And I just want to caution you to not do the same things, and to make sure that you leave and cleave, that your marriage is first and foremost.
As I hear you say that, this recovering type A personality goes into, I've got something else that I might need to fix with my adult kids. It's got all good all over because I want them to be happy and healthy, but now I could get too obsessive about that and not just kind of relax and let things happen naturally.
Yeah, don't do that.
Okay, all you type A's out there, you heard it from Dr. Julia herself.
Don't do that.
Don't do that.
Yeah, because anytime you see yourself going, I have to use the word obsessive just because, and I know it's a more extreme word.
Very very focused.
But yeah, because what can happen is you become anxious about that thing.
Right.
When you become obsessive, you're becoming anxious about that thing.
Yeah.
And
it's not something that needs to be addressed every day anyway, or things like that. But it's like some things just have to happen naturally. You just have to sit back and go, you know what? I spoke it. I said it. They know it. Now let life play out.
Right.
And that's kind of what I've had to learn to do. Let life play out. Every little thing, even if I spot it and no one else does, I don't need to do anything with it.
Right.
It's called a pause button. We'll talk about that on another podcast.
Yes, Steve's pause button.
The pause button.
We should get that red thing that we have somewhere.
Oh Yeah.
Actually, I probably got rid of that. Anyway, yeah, it just, if you find yourself feeling anxiety about something, just asking yourself, am I obsessing about this? And remember, and we've said this many times, the bigger piece is the communication with your kids where they know your heart.
Right.
And then when we have conflict, the kids can say, I know dad's heart, I know mom's heart,
Yep.
I know where they're coming from, and you can have a further conversation.
And what's interesting is the world wants you to demand respect, and we want to feel respect from whether it's the workplace or our marriages or our kids. Here's the funny thing. When you can see yourself and admit your mistakes and own them, your respect in your spouse's eyes and your family's eyes skyrockets.
Absolutely.
Skyrockets. It's like if more people own their mistakes, because everybody knows you can't see it or you're blind, or, I mean, just turn the TV news on and stuff, and it's like, oh my gosh.
Humility goes a long way.
Humility
a
goes,
little
oh my
humility
gosh.
goes a long way.
Oh my gosh. Because we all know that we're not perfect.
Yeah.
So when you go, you know what, I messed up here.
Yeah.
Like when we were raising our kids, I had to say I'm sorry to my kids every night. Daddy's sorry because this was what you got to go in there and say your side. It's like I had to learn to do it early, and I haven't stopped.
Yeah.
What else do we have on this?
I really don't have much else.
Okay.
I'm thinking we covered what I had. I have little notes here, and no, I think I've
Awesome.
covered it all. So,
awesome. Well, if you're watching us on YouTube or listening to the podcast and you want to get a hold of us, like I mentioned earlier, send us an email. We get quite a few emails. People are asking for the free copies of books. The book that this podcast is based off of is Jim Burns' book, Doing Life with Your Adult Children. Keep the welcome mat out and your mouth shut.
Keep your mouth shut. Keep your mouth shut and the welcome mat out.
What did I say?
You said it backward.
What she said. Yeah, because we're always wanting to say, hey, you want relationship over being right. So if you're not striving to be right, saying, I just want to have a relationship, I've been known to fly across the country to make relationships right and stuff. And the flights were, anyways, a long trip. But relationships very important. And if you need some further help, get a hold of us. We're here for you. We'd love to help you pivot from that parent to the partner. And when your own parents haven't pivoted, you can share the podcast with them.
Yeah, and I want to say, since YouTube is new for us,
Yeah.
and you're going to see we're kind of a little awkward probably, but if you're new to the podcast because we have just come on YouTube, please know our goal with this is we're going through this in real time with you. We have 4 children,
Yep.
4 adult children
Yep.
who are married.
Yep.
We've got 4 grandchildren, 1 on the way. So we are doing this in real time. We are raw, authentic, honest.
We're trying to teach you from our mistakes.
We mess up, and we learn from those mess ups, and it gives us content. And this is an ongoing thing. This doesn't change.
No.
And as we've said many times, you never stop being the parent.
No.
It just never
We have so much
happens.
to share about. We have to protect the innocent, meaning our kids.
Yeah, exactly. So if you're new, just wanted to get that out there.
Yeah, and there's a year and a half's worth of podcast available on any podcast platform, and YouTube is starting with this interview right here.
Woo!
This podcast.
Well, we did the interview last week.
Yes.
Oh, but that wasn't on YouTube.
No.
Yeah,
No.
that's right.
Anyway, hey, thanks for watching us on YouTube. Thanks for listening to us on the podcast.
Peace out.
We will be with you next Tuesday on the podcast. I have no idea when the YouTube's. We hired ourselves our own director of social media. So we're like, all we're told is, here's how you turn the camera on, and so here we go. So this is our first adventure into this. Hopefully they will get better. If we need to fix the sound, let us know. But anyway, join us next time for another broadcast and podcast of the Parent Pivot podcast.